Today, I would like to have a lecture which may be, the title is maybe not so clear. Yeah, actually, I will cover all the subjects you mentioned in my introduction, and it's kind of circle my lecture. I will start with the very basic terms of the constitutional law of the constitution itself. Then I will speak in the theoretic way about this terms like alternative clause, substantive core of the constitution, and basic structure of the constitution. And then I will, if there would be a time, of course, I would say something about some jurisdictions which are the most important because of influence or because of interesting case law related to these jurisdictions. And then finally, I will come back to the very beginning to some criticism of the whole concept. Yeah. I'm open to your questions during the lecture. So if you don't understand anything or you want to ask, just do not hesitate, and I will try to answer, or I will just tell you that I will answer later. Yeah. So please do it. Yeah. So this is like introduction of the lecture, and I must admit that it's a little bit difficult for me to have a lecture, of course, in English. You can see that it's difficult for me, but also that this audience is various. As I learned that you are part of students, part of professionals, maybe. Yeah. So maybe it's I decided that I would not change my my lecture because of this various audience. So maybe it would be for someone too simple and for someone too difficult. Yeah, but it's life. Yeah. So I will start with this basic question. So could you probably give me a short answer, someone, to this question? Yeah, is someone brave enough to tell me? Yeah. Okay. 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 Perfect. Perfect. So I don't know if everybody heard that the democracy is a freedom of choice, freedom to choice of government, for example. Perfect. Thank you very much. Because I got the other question, maybe even simpler on this class. So what's the constitution? Is someone somehow related to the democracy? Okay. Okay. Okay.
Performance. Like functioning.
Okay. So the function of the system. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. So the constitution is some kind of regulation of the system, and maybe of the democracy itself, because it should be probably democratic, So, but now I will go to the more interesting stuff. Probably, I will introduce this very topic of unconstitutional constitutional amendments, and later maybe we will see why I was asking about democracy and constitution. Maybe we won't, but so this concept of unconstitutional constitutional amendment seems strange, for lawyers and for constitutional lawyers as well. For the last few decades, we can see say now, but it's really very popular concept of the constitutional law, and as I show later, it's spreading through the world, and it's also a circle because it started in Europe. I will precise it later, but it's spreading through Asia, through Africa, through South America, and finally it goes back to the Europe. I will mention the example of Slovakia, which is probably the most interesting for our region on the end of the whole lecture. So this concept is based on judicial review, so it's made by courts, by case law, but of course somehow it's based also on theory, on constitutional theory, of course, and in some countries it's based even on written law, of course. But I will show that how it's all connected, even the jurisdictions with no written law concerning unconstitutional constitutional amendments, and the jurisdiction where it is only based on case law. Of course, it's kind of basic thought that we should protect some values of the Constitution, some principles. It's a democracy, actually, one of these principles, even against the constitutional law, against the
No, you didn't. It's just a clip. Okay, so we just.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's just. Oops. You need to get the voice to the computer here. Also, I just leave it here.
Yeah. Sorry. In theory, it's based on the thinking of Emmanuel Joseph Thiers from the French Revolution time, that you are probably familiar with this concept, that there is this primary or original constituent power which established the system. We see this power like some pre-organized people of our nation, we can say, which established the constitution, established the whole system, and then there is a constitution, written constitution, which, as we mentioned before, protect the system, regulate somehow the system, and this constitution is base for secondary derived constitutional constituent power. That's probably normally it's parliament, or it could be people in the referendum as well. It's an interesting question if it's people in the referendum could be seen as this derived constituent power, but we now a little bit focus on the main question, that there are these primary power and the secondary power in the theory. Yeah, and the theory says that we, under the constitution, like in the secondary power, are limited. We are limited, yeah, by the constitution, and that's why we can have these unconstitutional constitutional amendments, yeah, because we don't have the authority to destroy the constitution, yeah. So this is the theoretical reasoning, yeah. Yeah, sorry, I didn't change it here. So, yeah. So, yeah. So it's based in the modern times. It's based on the works of Carl Schmitt, who is the author of this poor concept, yeah, of the constituent power that couldn't be limited. That's the original power, but the second one could, yeah. But if we read CS properly, we can probably see that it's a little bit different in CS approach than the Schmitt's approach. That in the CS thinking, maybe it's not the poor procedural thing, yeah, that we got this or original power and then secondary power, but we can actually think about the values, yeah, like freedom or equality, which are actually the limits of the constituent power, not just the procedural thing that the people itself it's the limit. I will come back to this on the very end of the whole lecture. So, eternity clause, yeah, it's maybe the most famous term or concept regarding this unconstitutional constitutional amendments. As I mentioned before, it's when the written law, yeah, written part of the constitution says that some change is impossible, impermissible. Yeah, I got these examples from our Czech constitution that any changes in the essential requirements for a democratic state governed by the rule of law are impermissible. Yeah. As I mentioned before, it's based on the theory, but also it's based on the case law in several countries. And one of the most important theorist is Aaron Barak, Israeli author and former judge, who says that the constitutional justice is legal teeth of this clause, yeah, that without constitutional courts, anyway, it couldn't be of any function. So still, even if it's not based directly on the case law, it definitely needs constitutional courts for protect this eternity clause. This concept is quite old. Yeah, first eternity clause was we are dating it in 1798. Yeah, in the so-called Helvetic Swiss Republic, which was a product of the French revolutions and spread of the French armies. And as you probably know, it didn't last long. Yeah, so we can see that the eternity is not, of course, a real eternity. Yeah, it's always connected with the state and the society and the some kind of balance of powers. Yeah, but it was in this Helvetica Republic that there was introduced the first eternity clause in the constitution. And then, of course, we got the Norwegian constitution from the 1814, which is one of the oldest in the world, and it has also this eternity clause, very abstract, yeah, because it says it prohibits amendment of its spirit and its principles. And as you can imagine, it's not like it probably was thought, because of course the spirit and principles of the 1814 constitution was really different from the Norwegian constitution of nowadays. Yeah, because it was a really monarchistic, quite closed society, and now it's completely different. Yeah, so even if there is no direct amendment to this clause, of course, it couldn't keep the eternity of its principles for centuries. It's quite clear. So the modern eternity clause are based on different sources. It's based mainly on, of course, on French eternity clause from 1884, which is still functioning in the French system, but it only covers the republican form of government. So the main actually model, I would say, is German Basic Law, of course, from 1948, which covers not only some, I would say, abstract spirits or principles, but very or more precise, I would say, principles of the constitutionalism, as you see, on the screen. Yeah, there are, but there are many of them. Yeah, so from Germany, actually, the whole idea migrated, spreading through the world to other jurisdiction. And what is interesting, and that's why my whole lecture is not titled like Eternity Clause. Yeah, what is interesting is that it's not only this written eternity clause, but also other unwritten limitations. And this is based on this idea of substantive core of the constitution, that says that every constitution has two levels, yeah? Like common level, some regular norms, and then something which is called sometimes substantive core, sometimes hard core, sometimes material core. It's a set of values that characterize the constitution or the system itself. Yeah, in the most countries, of course, we would mention like that's the democratic values, that there are other values like federalism, for example, in some countries, something which really makes this system unique. Yeah. So it established, yeah, the very foundation of the constitutional order, and any change to this substantive core would actually alter, or we can say destroy, the whole constitution. Yeah. So if you even under the constitution, yeah, in the process of constitutional change, change these parameters, you would have another constitution, yeah, different constitution. So, and this author says it would be like destruction of the system, actually. Yeah. This concept has many names. Yeah. Probably the most famous is this basic structure doctrine, because this basic structure, it's almost the same thing like this substantive core of the constitution. It's based also on German theory, but it migrated to India, yeah, in 50s of the last century. And in India, where is the democratic, probably, constitution, yeah, but without any alternative clause. Yeah, there is a constitution without any alternative clause, and this basic structure doctrine was and still is the excuse, yeah, or the reason, I would say, for the Supreme Court, because in India there is the system like in United States. You don't have special constitutional review. It's constitutional court. You got Supreme Court. So this Supreme Court use this way of reasoning to establish this eternity clause, to protect these values, these principles of the constitution. Yeah, I will. There is a famous quote that a power to amend is not a power to destroy. Yeah, that's the basic of the basic structure doctrine. Yeah, that you are not allowed to amend the constitution even without written statement in the constitution. It's based on the very meaning of the constitution. That's why I was asking, what's the constitution? Yeah, in the beginning. Yeah, that you don't actually need the written limitation of the change of the constitution, because you say it's kind of procedural thinking a little bit. Yeah, as we see that we could not change the constitution in a way it would destroy its basic structure, or as I mentioned before, we can say in the same time this substantive core of the constitution. But it didn't stop in India. Yeah, it's spreading from India, and Bangladesh, for example, is a country where they put it directly to the constitution, so it's kind of eternity clause as well, yeah, but based on this theory of basic structure. But you got many more countries directly influenced by Indian Supreme Court, of course, Pakistan, but for example, it's Belize as well. Yeah, so not only countries in the South Asia, but it's really spreading through the world. And the most interesting case from last years was in Kenya. Yeah, I will speak about it later. It was for a lot of constitutionalists from all over the world. Very interesting, because there was a huge legal battle in Kenya, and this weapon, I would say weapon, yeah, because it's instrument, probably is better word, of basic structure doctrine, was one of the most important instrument in this battle of the constitution. Yeah, so this is basic structure doctrine in theory. Yeah, and now I will move to this second part of my lecture, and I will guide you through some interesting jurisdictions. Yeah, I will start with France. Yeah, because from two reasons. Yeah, one reason is that I mentioned before, that the French thinking, yeah, and French constitution is kind of model. It was the first, and it's one of the most important eternity clause in the constitution, and also it was the French concept of this pouvoir constituant original et pouvoir constituant dérivé. That's the constituent, original constituent power and secondary constitution power. Yeah, that's why obviously we have to start with France, but there is also another reason. Yeah, and let me say that maybe it seems really theoretic, yeah, the whole lecture, yeah, for you, but it could be very practical in some moment, yeah, as I will show you in the case law, yeah, and that's the second reason why to speak about French system, because it's so different from this practical point of view, because as we see in France, you has this prohibition, this limitation of the constitutional power, yeah, but you don't use it. You don't actually use it, and there is no authorization in the constitution for any organ, for any body, to protect this eternity clause, even not for the so-called Constitutional Council. Yeah, you probably know that there is no constitutional court in France, but this Constitutional Council is almost constitutional court. Yeah, I suppose we can now say that there is no huge difference between typical continental constitutional court as we have in in our region or in Germany or in I don't know, in other countries, and this system of constitutional council. Yeah, constitutional council has the power to eliminate some unconstitutional laws. It's different than in our thinking a little bit, because the French constitutional thinking is still a little bit or more or less influenced by the sovereignty of the law concept. Yeah, but in last decades, it's much more similar to I would say this German or Kelsenian, if you want. Yeah, probably. I suppose you are familiar with Hans Kelsen and his thinking. So it's not so different, but in this particular question, yeah, of unconstitutionality of constitutional amendments, still France is not open to act. Yeah, I would say. Yeah, so you got this eternity clause. Yeah, which could have, of course, some power. Yeah, because it's a limitation for thinking in the parliament of the people who decide. Yeah, but there is no this legal teeth. Yeah, as I mentioned before, in the Constitutional Council, which show you, which says in several decisions from 60s till last decades that it has no power to act. Yeah, so there is no possible intervention towards the constitutional amendment. Yeah, so that's why I started with France, because it was the first jurisdiction, or one of the first jurisdiction, when we find this eternity clause, this limitation of not only parliament but the whole constitutional making process, but still it doesn't provide this regulation, this body of regulation. Yeah. And complete opposite is it's India. I have mentioned it before, yeah, when we were speaking about the basic structure doctrine. And it was in the 60s when it started to emerge this this concept. But the most important decision is from 1973, when this basic structure doctrine was formally introduced in the reasoning in the case Casavananda Bharti, and I already cite this the main argument, yeah, that the power to amend the Indian constitution does not mean the power to destroy its original basic structure. Actually, every judge of the Supreme Court of India, of course, has in mind probably a little bit different basic structure. Yeah, of course, they cited the lot of principles. Yeah, as I cite from the German part in the beginning. But they concluded together that there is such a thing like basic structure, which should be protected by the court. Even there is no written eternity clause. And what is even more interesting is that after this landmark decision, it was the government of Indira Gandhi who tried to overrule this decision. So they introduced the constitutional amendment, 42nd amendment, that says that there is no actually basic structure, and that the court has no power to overrule some constitutional amendments. And the reaction of the court was that this constitutional amendment is obviously unconstitutional. So there is a really huge battle between parliament, I would say, or you can say between the people, and the Supreme Court. And of course, the judges of the Supreme Court would say that the people is on their side, that they are protecting actually as we mentioned in the beginning, the democracy, that the court is protecting democracy in this battle, which could be strange, for us, or very difficult to accept, that it's not the parliament where the democracy is, but that's the reasoning, that we have to protect the very regulation, as was mentioned in the beginning, that the constitution is kind of regulation playbook, and that the court, based on this eternity clause, or if there is no eternity clause, on this basic structure doctrine, could and should protect even against this political elite. We got. I didn't put in my presentation all of course, all of the jurisdiction, but something very similar we can see in Turkey. Or we saw it. Probably now it would be much more difficult for the court in Turkey to introduce such a decision. But even in Turkey was this battle between court on one side. In Turkish constitution, you can find the similar eternity clause like in France, that there is a republican form of government. It's based, of course, on Atatürk's approach, and there was a law as well in Turkey that says that this constitutional court could examine the constitutional amendment only from the procedural point of view, not from the material point of view. But the Constitutional Court of Turkey says that from the very term amendment, you can, of course, or you have to look inside the amendment, and you have to look in the from the material point of view still. So this little bit the same fight was in Turkey as well. It seems to me that in today's constitutional law, it's quite common to use these examples not only from Europe, or US. So I add also Colombia as an example, because some authors says that there is a special doctrine in Colombia. It is called constitutional replacement or sometimes subtraction doctrine. But if we examine it in more detail, we would see that it's almost the same again, like this basic structure doctrine. Yeah? It was introduced by the Constitutional Court of Colombia in 2003, and it I put here this whole basic arguments, and as you can see, it's almost the same, like this basic structure doctrine. First of all, that there has to be this power to review the competence of issuing or amend the constitution. And the second argument is the same, actually, like in this basic structure doctrine, that the power of amendment doesn't mean the power to replace it. Yeah, we can say destroy it. Yeah. Anyway, and of course, the court should check if this is a modification of the constitution or its replacement of the constitution. So of course the court has to analyze the content of the amendment, not only the procedural thing. And of course, if the court decides that it was not modification but the replacement, it has the power or competence to review the and to eliminate this amendment. Yeah. So as you can see, it's almost the same. It's actually based on the same theory, same way of thinking, but it doesn't mention the basic structure doctrine or these Indian decisions. And of course, it's quite influential in the South America. Yeah, so the other states of South America also use this doctrine invented by the Colombian Constitutional Court. But on the other side, and I will speak about it in the last part of my lecture. Of course, there is a huge criticism as well about this whole concept, and especially in Colombia, you can find a lot of criticism against the whole concept of the unconstitutional constitutional amendments. Yeah. So, and now I would speak about that Kenyan case, which is interesting because it's quite new. This case ended last year, yeah, because in Kenya it's a little bit different system. It was based on so-called BBI case. BBI, it means Building Bridges Initiative. It was initiative before the election that the two parts of the society, two political streams would overrule their differences, their fights, and that they promised to change the constitution, to add some constituencies, to change the whole system, to end long-term problems. Yeah. But this reform was really severe, really it was quite a huge reform of the constitution, and it was quite cabinet reform. Yeah, it was not discussed properly and so on. Yeah, so there was a huge opponent against it. But in Kenya, it started in the first round, not in some administrative court, yeah, not in the constitutional court itself, yeah, because normally, for example, in our country, in Slovakia and so on, you can go directly to the constitutional court, yeah, with this matter if you are some privilege body, yeah, for example, members of parliament, president, and so on. But here it started like a normal case, yeah. And interesting is this decision of the Court of Appeal, yeah, because it was a second round, which in 2020 it says that there is a basic structure of the Kenyan constitution, and actually in this decision is one of the, in my point of view, one of the best summarization of this constituent power versus secondary original constituent power and the secondary constituent power. And the main argument, which is really interesting, says, of course, you can have a new constitution. Yeah, you can destroy or modify, replace, yeah, as I mentioned before. But if you want to do it, you have to do it properly. Yeah, so you have to start with some civic education, so people actually understand what is going on. Then you have to have some kind of participation on this change, yeah, and then you have to have some constitutional assembly when you can discuss this more in more educated way, and then finally you have to have a referendum, yeah. And in this way, which takes a lot of time, lots of effort, yeah, you can do whatever you want, yeah. You can make a new constitution, yeah. But if you do it like directly, yeah, I always mention the Slovakian case, yeah, because for us, for Czech is quite interesting, maybe for you as well, yeah. In Slovakia, you can change constitution like in a few hours, yeah, because you got only one chamber, yeah, and you can actually change constitution in a few hours, yeah. So it's completely different thing, yeah. That's why it's interesting, yeah. But in 2020, so last year, it finally went to the Supreme Court of Kenya, and this court, in the judgment, which takes almost 1,000 pages, yeah, so for us lawyers it's quite difficult. So in this judgment, it was overruled, actually, yeah, but not the whole thing, but the basic structure argument, yeah. So the Supreme Court said in the final decision that there is no basic structure actually in the Kenyan system, yeah. So we don't have like a new member of the family of the basic structure countries or jurisdictions, but still it's quite interesting the reasoning why it is from the High Court, and why not from the Supreme Court of Kenya, and I also want to mention this term of constitutional dismemberment. It's also a little bit same thing as I mentioned for 1 hour now. That there is this. It's a theory actually popularized by Richard Albert, which is a Canadian author, who says that there are 2 types of constitutional reforms. That there are constitutional amendments, which do not make any important change in the constitution. They just add something for smoother functioning of the or change the name of the, I don't know, somebody and so on. Or even he mentions this problem that in some country in Caribbean they made a constitution with a mistake. That there was a mistaken article. Mention of the article was wrong. And they have this dispute if they have to change the constitution, as the mention of the article would be correct, not article, I don't know, 27 or 28, or they just keep it, and by the interpretation it would be clear that it's only a mistake of number. So finally they decided to change it, the constitution. So it's an amendment. But this dismemberment is something much more important. It's something huge. It's something who reforms the important part of the constitution, and maybe it could be part of this basic structure, of the very spirit of the constitution. And then, of course, it could be seen as impermissible in some cases. So this is the Kenyan case, and yes. Yeah, thank you very much. The question was why they mentioned this civil education in the reasoning. Why it's important, this civil education, to change the constitution.
Education is so important, right? No, it's like because the other three processes are about voting, but civil education is about education. It's like about social.
In my point of view, as I read this decision, the reasoning is that if you going just to vote or just to it's a problem actually of free speech, I suppose. It's the problem of free speech. That when you got the free speech, but you don't have any information, and you don't have any understanding of the thing you are talking about, is it still free speech actually? That's the thing of the argument, that you have to start with understanding of the matter, and that's why education is important, that you it's like the argument that I would say that before you want, if I put it very simple, yeah, if you if there is a question, you prefer, I don't know, pork meat or beef meat, yeah, and if you don't know how taste the other meat, yeah, you are not able to answer the question actually, yeah, but I understand your hesitation or why you put this question, because it's really difficult to say what's the proper civil education, yeah, because education could be quite opposite as well, yeah, that through the education you can be it could be used like, you know, propaganda and so on, and then after the education the people could be less free, yeah, probably, yeah. So I completely understand, yeah, but I suppose it's like in this ideal way of thinking, that when you want from someone to decide what would be the best for him, you have to in the first place give him some education, give him some opportunities, give him some knowledge about, I don't know, history of constitutionalism, history of politics, history of societies, and so on, yeah. But I understand, of course, it's really difficult to do it, yeah. It might be impossible, yeah, to do it in some proper way, because still you would have these claims that it was propaganda, it was fake news, yeah, of course, yeah, and so on, yeah. So I'm not sure if I now I'm not a little bit distant from that case, yeah, but that's how I understand, yeah. In theory, it seems right, yeah, that if you want to decide the very regulation of the society, you should, in the first place, understand what is society, what kind of regulation you can have, and also for us lawyers, we should always, yeah, if you, I don't know if there is some legislator here, yeah, maybe one, that you have to think about what comes from the new legislation, yeah, what comes from that institutions, yeah. So I think this whole thing is connected in this way, yeah. Fine. Thank you very much for the question anyway. And now I go to. Sorry, I didn't. I didn't show you the last picture, so you can see it now. But now I go to Slovakia. I mentioned like 1,000 times before, because this case law in Slovakia is very interesting, because as I also mentioned, it's a kind of circle, yeah, that in Germany it started, it was spreading to India and all over the world, and through Slovakia it returned to Europe, because Slovakia has no eternity clause in the constitution, yeah, but it's really influenced by Czech constitutional court, yeah, and I would mention it later, the famous decision of the Czech constitutional court, which also based on German thinking, use this eternity clause to protect the constitution against constitutional amendment in 2009 in the famous decision called Melchák. I would speak about it later. But 10 years later in 2019, it was actually the Slovakian Constitutional Court who introduced this concept of basic structure doctrine, even it did not mention it. Yeah? It did not mention basic structure doctrine or Indian jurisdiction as a key argument for the decision. It's always the same thing, yeah? As we saw in Colombia, as we saw in India. It's always the same thing, that the Constitution contains an implicit substantive core which consists of the principles of democracy and rule of law. And that's the reasoning of the Slovakian Constitutional Court, that even without any eternity clause, which prohibits some kind of amendments, you can limit the power of the parliament to amend the constitution. So in this judgment, or in the reasoning of this judgment, we see that not even constitutional law, it could be constitutional amendments, may violate this implicit substantive core of the Constitution. Yeah, so it's one part of it, and the second part is that the Constitutional Court has the power. Yeah, it's the difference between France. Yeah, as I mentioned before. Yeah, in France you have this eternity clause directly in the Constitution, but the Constitutional Court in France is not prepared to protect this eternity clause, but Slovakian court said that it has the power to examine constitutional laws for possible violations of the implicit substantive core of the Constitution. Yeah, and it found the violation in that case. Other interesting thing is that, for example, the German Constitutional Court that I mentioned several times as well, never actually acted. Yeah. It only said that it has that power. Yeah. So it could, if there would be a case. Yeah. But never use it in that way. Yeah. And that's why the Czech decision was so important, because it was based on this German inspiration, but the Czech Constitutional Court acted, yeah, and so Slovakian, yeah, and it was not the case like a landmark case that the democracy would end in Slovakia after this modification of the constitution. It was actually, in my point of view, it was kind of, I would say, probably even minor change related to the judges, yeah, but not the most important thing. Yeah, so it's probably also a little bit same like in Czech Republic, as I explain you later. Yeah. So that's why it's so important, because it was the first time in Europe that some constitutional court or Supreme Court used this basic structure doctrine, or just substantive core limitation of of amendment amendment power in Europe, as I mentioned before. And the beautiful thing about this is obviously that you don't need anything to use it. Actually, yeah, you just say that there is a substantive core of the Constitution or basic structure of the Constitution, and from the pure theory, yeah, and from the term itself, you can act, yeah, and you can act in the most important, yeah, you can probably imagine in your system what would it be like the discussion after such a decision, yeah, when the court would eliminate somehow something, for example, election, yeah, or some amendment to the Constitution. So and it could come from nowhere, yeah, from we say in Czech that there is no on the sky, there is no seams of rain, and from nothing the rain is coming, yeah, so no cloud, yeah, no cloud, and it's still raining, yeah. So that's the beautiful thing about it, yeah, from the constitutional law point of view, yeah. But there is something even more interesting probably, because in 2021 the Slovak Constitutional Court decide even probably even more or the same of the same interest case, which is actually based on the same reasoning, that there is this substantive core of the Constitution, but it was not against the constitutional amendment. It was against initiative to introduce a referendum. Yeah, because in Slovakian system you can have general referendums. Yeah, we in Czech Republic, we don't have it in our constitution. We are having like 30 years of discussions about it, but still we don't have general referendum. And in my point of view, it's not a problem to have this absence of referendum. But in Slovakia constitution, you got this opportunity to have a referendum. But the Constitutional Court said that to have such a referendum, to shorten the period of the parliament and to have a new election, is against this substantive core of the Constitution. Yeah, so it was not this is important. Yeah, it was not the referendum itself which was under the examine of the court, but it was this initiative to have a referendum. Yeah, and so the referendum, there was no referendum at all. Probably you know that in Slovakia finally there would be the elections. Yeah, but it could have been much more closely to this period. Yeah, so it was another way of using the concept of substantive core limitation of the Constitution. Yeah, and of course, there is that question I mentioned before as well. If there is a difference when you examine the constitutional amendment produced by Parliament or constitutional amendment produced by people in the referendum. Yeah, and it's still open question, of course. Yeah, there are some views that's the completely different thing. Yeah, when you have referendum, it's people itself who speaks. So you could have no limitation, but still there are some authors who said no, it's no difference because people in this point of view is also part of this secondary constitutional power. It's an organ of the constitution actually. So even the people could not change the constitution in this destroying way. And we return to that question, yeah, because they say probably the people can, but it has to be like a different people. So you have to make this different people by this education, by this participation, yeah. But if you see this, there was a, for example, project in Iceland, yeah, probably maybe someone heard about it, that in Iceland, like 10 years ago, maybe even more than 10 years ago now, they decided to have a new constitution, and they decided to go by this method. Yeah, so they crowdfunded the constitution. Yeah, that everyone can participate, everyone can propose some changes. It was quite funny stuff actually, of course. Then they have this constituanta, this constituent assembly, and so on. But finally, they did not change the constitution in the way they wanted. Yeah, so it didn't work actually. Yeah, this participation model properly. Yeah, so it's quite difficult. Yeah, of course. Fine. Oh. So, and now we go back to the beginning. Yeah, we go back to Germany. As I mentioned several times, it was in the basic law where the this strong eternity clause was introduced after the Second World War. And it was part of this concept of militant democracy. Yeah, probably also a common concept for you. And that's actually why it was so important and so popular even outside Germany, so because it was like a real instrument, practical instrument to protect democracy and the constitution itself. Yeah, it's of course more clear, more open than this basic structure or substantive core doctrine. But I suppose this written instrument is also the root for this unwritten instrument. Yeah, and I will show you it on this final case, and it's of course the Czech case. Yeah, the Czech case, and then I will connect it to the whole thing. Yeah, so I already mentioned that in 2009 there was a huge political crisis in the Czech Republic. There was a weak government who lost the confidentiality vote. Yeah, and then the politicians decided to just have a new election. Yeah, it's the same like the Slovakian case I mentioned, the second one. So they introduced the special constitutional law that would shorten the term of parliament, of the House of Deputies, like almost a year. Or not 4 years, but 3 years only in office. Yeah. But one of the MPs, Miloš Melčák, he knew that he wouldn't be re-elected because before he kind of betrayed his party. So he introduced this case, and he claimed that this special constitutional amendment is in fact unconstitutional. Yeah, it seemed that it wouldn't be, of course, any problem. Yeah, because even there was this eternity clause in the Czech constitution. For many insiders, it seemed hopeless for introducing in this way. But Constitutional Court decided that, in fact, this special constitutional amendment or constitutional law, more precisely, was unconstitutional. Yeah, it was unconstitutional. So there was no elections in 2009, and the elections were almost a year later, and we still actually has the consequences in our politics, of course. Yeah, and Czech Constitutional Court decided this decision based on this German approach. Yeah, of course, based on this eternity clause, but it somehow mixed two things. Yeah, because as I show you, the Czech constitution says that it could be amended only by constitutional acts, of course. Yeah. And the most important is this eternity clause. It's the second article, second paragraph, sorry, that the substantive requisites of the democratic law-abiding state may not be amended. Yeah, it means basically that the rule of law and democratic principles are eternal. Yeah, but the Czech Constitutional Court, in its case law, even before this decision, somehow mix this notion of substantive requisites of the democratic law-abiding state with the notion of substantive core or substantive or hardcore or material core of the constitution. In fact, these are two different things. Yeah, because you can have, for example, federal constitution and then decide that you change it to unitarian state. Yeah, or you can have, like, I don't know, the huge modification of the organization of power, but still be a democratic state. Yeah, and the whole concept of the basic structure is not based on not only on the democracy versus autocracy, yeah, or rule of law and rule of, I don't know, some dictatorship and so on. Yeah, it's based on the structure of the constitution, core of the constitution. Yeah, and the Czech Constitutional Court somehow mixed the two things and says that the substantive core is the same thing like these substantive requisites of the democratic law-abiding state, which is not correct, actually, which is not correct. And it, of course, has this eternity clause, yeah, I will go back. As you see, the reasoning actually of the Czech Constitutional Court was that procedural as well, yeah, not directly substantive. Yeah, it was procedural because it was based on this Article 9, yeah, that the constitutional that the parliament is not authorized, yeah, to introduce to the systems this special constitutional law, which would somehow go beyond the constitution, yeah. But in the same time, it argues and it used this concept of the material core of the constitution, and it's so important. That's why I speak about it so in very detail, yeah, because this was the reason for the Slovakian court actually. So to Slovakia, it was not from India, yeah, the concept of the basic structure. It was the concept from Czech Constitutional Court, from this Melchák case, which was really famous. Yeah, it's one of the cases. You know that it's of course difficult to spread some thoughts from small countries to the whole global, constitutional law discussion. Yeah, but this was a little bit different. Yeah, because this case was interesting for everybody, not only in Europe but also elsewhere. And of course, it was quite influential to Slovakia. So actually, it was this reasoning, which was the reasoning for that decision from 2019. But my argument is, but even it goes from Czech Republic, not from India, it's the whole same thing still. Yeah? Still the same thing, that you got some core of the constitution, some basic structure of the constitution, which could not be destroyed by the amendment. Yeah, and you of course trying. Remember that Colombian case, yeah, and other cases I mentioned before. You always trying to use this procedural argument, because for lawyers it's of course much more feasible, much it's simpler to use procedural argument to protect the constitution. Yeah. So there was, of course, huge criticism of this concept. I mentioned it several times as well, that these concepts are criticized in South America, in Germany, and in France, of course, as well. That this is and there is a dissent of judge to this decision of Czech Constitutional Court of Jan Musil, who is one of the, I like it, this dissent, yeah, that says that in the final instance it would be lawyers who would decide what is actually part of the constitution. Yeah, when it emerged that Melchák case, now it's almost 15 years ago. Yeah, it was a huge thing in Czech Republic, and it was criticized even by the authors who were open to the idea of unconstitutional constitutional amendments, because this case was strange. Yeah, because actually the purpose of this amendment was to have an election, have to general election. Yeah, so to establish new democratic parliament, which would be able to deal with the crisis, which was not only political crisis, of course, it was economical crisis as well. Yeah, so probably it was this criticism was also based not only on this constitutional purity, yeah, that there could not be something like unconstitutional constitutional amendment, yeah, but also about this particular situation, yeah, and in general, of course, you got this criticism of the whole judicial review concept, yeah, which I use, yeah, that there are these two main reasons why we should be a little bit cautious, yeah, that Jeremy Waldron claims that there is no reason to believe that rights would be better protected by judicial review than by the parliament itself, yeah, or and the second argument, yeah, is more theoretic, it's illegitimate. Sorry, illegitimate. Yeah. So, but this is a huge critique. You can find it in U.S. discussion. This critique of the Supreme Courts and High Courts and of course constitutional courts, that they are much more political institutions, that and that argument of basic structure or substantive core of the Constitution is someone said it's like a nuclear bomb, yeah, that you can use like to destroy the whole parliamentary democracy. Yeah? But even there is this really huge criticism. Yeah, after this 15 years or more than 10 years, I a little bit weakened my criticism of the concept. Yeah. And it seems to me, if you see these decisions I mentioned before from Africa or from South America or South Asia and so on, that there is a point, yeah, that there is actually a point on this, yeah, and it could be situation when the court has to act, yeah, has to protect the Constitution, and we can go back. Yeah, I'm sorry, it's so simple. Yeah, the reasoning. Yeah, but we can go back to the United States to this decision of Marbury versus Madison, because if we don't have this constitutional courts, yeah, or courts which are able to a little bit examine these products of the legislators, it would be probably more problematic, yeah, for the function of the Constitution itself, from the notion of the Constitution, yeah, because as we mentioned before, what's the Constitution? It's kind of regulation of the system, and if we don't have any protection of the whole regulation, yeah, there would be, of course, there would not be any regulation at all in the last place. Yeah. So maybe we should, in the first place, we should know that there is something like eternity clause, like unconstitutional constitutional amendment. Yeah. If there is something like that, it's because it seems nonsense. Yeah? Unconstitutional constitution amendment. Yeah, but it's a thing. Yeah, it's the first thing. The second thing is that there are courts which are prepared to protect the constitution, yeah, based on these levels of the constitutionality. Third thing, we should be aware of the criticism of this concept, of its illegitimate, undemocratic nature, and so on. Yeah, but in the last point, in the conclusion, we should think about it with open mind. Yeah, with open mind that probably there are some situations, yeah, when it could be used wisely. Yeah. So, and this is the point of my lecture. So, but of course, I'm prepared to answer question if there is a question after my lecture. I'm sorry it was a circle, but this was in purpose. Yeah, that I always returned to India or to Slovakia or somewhere else. So now, if there is any question from you, yes, please.
Okay, I need the microphone. Okay, I'm sorry, but we need to get the microphone. Okay, let's open the discussion. So the microphone can get, okay, I'm sorry, it just works like this. Very hard to hear.
So I have this one question that I couldn't get out of my mind because there was a quote, I think, that a power to amend is not the power to destroy. But where is the border of this concept of law idea? I couldn't get the answer that would satisfy me.
Yeah. Yeah, understood. That's why I mentioned this huge criticism about this concept, and that's why I mentioned it's a nuclear weapon. Yeah, because there obviously is no such a border. Yeah, because it's only limited by the conscience of the judges, actually. Yeah, because and that's why I mentioned that the cases in Slovakia, even in Czech Republic, it's quite problematic because these amendments were not directed to destroy the whole system, especially the Czech case. Yeah, because it was open to the new election, democratic election. Yeah, there was no critics that the election would be like undemocratic or there would be some kind of propaganda and so on. No, it was poorly conceptual, the argument. So there is no such a border, unfortunately. Yeah, of course, probably the general public could be such a border. Yeah, because if Constitutional Court says this is unconstitutional, this is rubbish, this new legislation, this new amendment, and in fact it would be really the general public would support the thing, yeah, and the authorities like law professors would say no, it's no problem. That would be probably the border, yeah, for the court not to cross, yeah. But in fact, you couldn't have a direct border because if you had, and that's why. Sorry to speak a lot about this question, yeah, but probably that's why the Germans introduced this eternity clause because it's kind of a border, yeah. Because if you have a written law, yeah, you got this limitation like a written law. It's more difficult actually for the court to say no, it's something else as well, yeah. But of course, you can reply me, yeah. But if you have like abstract concept, like I don't know, rule of law. Yeah, you can always say rule of law is anything. Yeah, so even if you precise it like this, there would be no direct border, I suppose.
Okay, so thank you.
Questions, comments? Please.
Firstly, I want to thank for the lecture, and I have some maybe a definition question. Uh, uh, are you differentiating the constitutional identification from the constitutional spirit, like something that is what is just typical for that individual, sorry, for that specified constitution, and that was common for the most constitution to limit the basis in general. So this substantive core will be something more like the general constitutional, what is the same for everybody constitution, or is more like this the basic principle will be for the ideas?
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a really good question, because I didn't mention this notion of constitutional identity, which is very popular in recent years. I also published on this matter concerning this substantive core, because it's the question I a little bit touched when I was speaking about Czech case law. For me, it seems that these are two different things. Yeah, that this identity of the constitution is really based on something specific for that constitutional system. Yeah, not only like a general term of rule of law or democratic. Yeah, but for Czech Constitutional Court, actually, something specific for Czech constitution is this concept of democratic law-abiding state, which doesn't mean make sense actually. I suppose. Yeah. So so for me, it's two different things. Yeah, and you are right, or if I don't disinterpret you, that it's more close to this concept of substantive core of the constitution. Yeah, but probably it's still a little bit different. It's true that substantive core is more oriented on these general principles. Yeah, which are used in this constitution. Yeah, like I don't know, federalism, rule of law, and etc. Social state, for example. Yeah, and the identity is a little bit more specific. Yeah, it could be connected for religion. Yeah, for example, and so on. As I understand it. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So.
Mila. And Professor Florczak-Wotra. Mila first, I guess, are going first.
Thank you very much for this interesting lecture. I actually wanted to ask one thing. Usually in our constitutional thinking, when we see some constitutional body, we look at its authorities, powers, etc., and then we think of how to constitute this body. Okay. Of course, in this scenario, when constitutional courts have basically claimed this huge power, which goes much further than originally anticipated. So what do you think should this mean for the construction of the body? Should we rethink how constitutional courts are constructed? Does it influence the way they are composed? Whether there should be some scrutiny procedures, or would that violate the very basic idea that there should be somebody which is, say, independent of the regular democratic process, etc. I would just be interested, like, in your ideas in this respect.
Yeah, thank you very much. In fact, this is also, I suppose, this is also discussed in German theory, yeah. And one of the argument is that the legitimacy of the constitutional courts or supreme courts is not based on the same way like parliament on democratic elections and so on, but it's based on these reasonings of the courts. So I suppose it's not common to think about that when we realize that the court is much stronger than we thought in the first place, that we should probably add some legitimation to it. For example, by some election of judge. Yeah, it could be idea. Yeah, like in US, in some district, you got still this election system. But in fact, I did not see such a discussion in connection with this concept, because normally the reaction of the constitution was sometimes, as I mentioned in the Indian case, yeah, that there was a direct attempt to limit the court, yeah, when it occurs such a powerful, yeah. No, so not to change its legitimation, but to cut these powers, yeah. So, but it's really really good. I have to talk about it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think I will be the next one. Thank you very much for the interesting and very inspiring lecture. My question will be on Article 9, as I remember correctly, of the Czech Constitution. As I remember correctly, it states that the Constitution can be amended or supplemented, or can be supplemented or amended only by constitutional acts. Yes, and we do not have this distinguish between supplementation and amendment in the Polish Constitution. So I would like to ask how those two terms, to be supplemented, to be amended, is explained in the case law, maybe of the Constitutional Court. And the other question is, it's something also that is not regulated by the Polish Constitution, but we discuss about this, whether it is possible to change the constitution, the Czech Constitution, in such a way as to adopt the new constitution. So this is the problem, how to understand this term amendment, because we have in our constitution also the term amendment, and there is a discussion whether the amendment is just the amendment within the constitution, or maybe it is the amendment of the constitution. So how do you understand this term amendment, and what is the distinguish between supplementation and amendment? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the very, very good question. Maybe there is a little problem with translation, because this is the kind of official translation from the Czech Parliament I use in this lecture. I think for the first question, that it's also based actually on German, little bit influence. But the main argument is that the Czech Constitution, we got like two levels. We got the Constitution, we say, like the act, which is actually called Constitution, yeah. But it's in fact only part of the Constitution, because we got the Constitution in the bigger sense. We say constitutional order, I would say, which is actually Constitution, yeah. So in our theory, these constitutional acts, the Constitution consists of the Constitution and constitutional acts, yeah, actually. So amend would be like to introduce new constitutional act in the system. For example, we got constitutional act on safety, I would say, which covers some special regulation during some special states, like was in COVID crisis and so on. Yeah. So this, I suppose, means you can have this new constitutional act in general, yeah, for some reason, or you can supplement to add something to the original constitution. Yeah, that's why we use these two terms. Yeah, but together it forms the constitution in the greater sense. But actually, Czech Constitutional Court used this argument, yeah, in that famous case, because it said that this particular constitutional act, which only shortened the term of the parliament, was neither amendment, yeah, and neither supplement, yeah. It was one-time special law, and that's why it was also unconstitutional. Yeah, so it's a reaction to the, if I understand correctly, this is kind of reaction to the Weimar Republic in Germany, pre-war period, where it was a common institution in Germany. There was some constitution, but they introduced always the special constitutional act to decide some special thing, yeah, and to somehow not use the constitution, yeah. So that's why we got it in the constitution, I suppose. Yeah, I'm not sure if I understand everything you ask.
It's great, thanks. And the other question was about the amendment. How do you understand your the new constitution, the adoption of the new constitution? Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, there is no such discussion, debate. There is no one who would propose to have a whole new constitution. Yeah, I suppose it could be used, this argument by Constitutional Court, to say we could not have a whole new constitution under this procedure. We would probably need some new special constitutional act, which would introduce this possibility to have a new constitution. Yeah. Because otherwise the Constitutional Court could say, no, it's not an amendment, it's not a supplement, it's something completely new. Yeah. So we could not have it because we are, and I return to the very topic of the lecture, we got this basic structure. Yeah, we got this substantive core. Yeah, and we are the secondary constituent power. Yeah, we couldn't have like a new constitution. But obviously, I suppose when it would be like a huge will of the people, of the Czech people, that there is a need of the new constitution, I suppose we, of course, could find a way to do it. But I don't see such a will. Okay.
Any other question? Yeah, I do have one question to the public giving first.
Yeah. So in my mind, there's another question. So if we think of the definition of constitution more like the Giovanni Sartori, so it's like the full constitution, not vacates, so it's no institution, limits power, protects lives, and all that stuff. So from your point of view, is it possible that if we implement this basic law doctrine fully, even if the constitutional court doesn't have the right to control the constitutional amendment, is it possible for the constitutional court to create it, or I don't know, the creatively interpret it, or is it just natural if we see this the seed is as the you know, the full constitution, to the constitutional court has it as a natural privilege or some kind of that?
Yes, if I understand correctly, I suppose in theory and maybe even in practice, it's possible almost everything. Yeah, from the point of reasoning of the constitutional court. Yeah, of course. Yeah, so I can imagine even such a huge acts, and you mentioned very correctly that's the interesting thing, interpretation. Yeah, because you probably see that in US you got this huge much of originalism. Yeah, to go back. Yeah, to the meanings. Yeah, but it could be completely otherwise. Yeah, that we. And it was my example about Norwegian constitution, for example, yeah, that we don't change anything in the constitution, but just by the interpretation based on this case law of the constitutional court, we can do, I think, almost anything, yeah, if you or if the court wants.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay,
So-
thank you. I have the last question.
Well, what is your solution for Poland? Why? Because first of all,
We have amendments of the constitution right now without actually having amended the constitution. And second of all, we do not have proper constitutional court. So what are your thoughts about Poland and what are your solutions?
Maybe you did see that I a little bit hesitated in one moment in my lecture when I was speaking about Czech case law that normally no one is interested in Czech constitutional system law, because I immediately realized that everyone is now interested in Polish and Hungarian system, yeah, and not only in Europe, on every continent, I suppose, yeah. So it's kind of delicate question, yeah. For me, we were discussing with my colleagues, yeah, that it would be for us interesting to be here and to see how discussion is framed. Yeah, I would say, but I would not answer you actually, because it was also one of I intentionally did not mention Polish system, because I'm not ever sufficiently to do the math. Yeah, so to answer. Yeah, so maybe after this. I would think about it after, and maybe later I will write something about it. Yeah, but I don't have a reaction now. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so we wait 2 days more when you will hear all the lectures. Yeah, that for us, I think it's really interesting, because we were discussing yesterday that in Poland we in fact have amendments to the constitution without really amending the constitutions, because the governing majority does not have enough majority to overrule or overturn the constitution. And second of all, we do not have a proper constitutional court.
That's the difference between Poland and Hungary, yeah, that you have to go this way. You not yet are able to change the constitution. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, but I don't have some clever answer. Sorry.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else? Yes.
I thought it was the last question.
No. Our students are very efficient, as you see.
It's not a question, actually. It's more of a comment in response to your question, because I was thinking about the same thing throughout the entire lecture. Because I started out very enthusiastically hearing about the substantive core of the Constitution, because I was thinking, yeah, all of the bad things that are happening in Poland could be solved by using the substantive core, saying that, yeah, you might say that it's constitutional, but it might just not be axiologically right according to the Constitution. But then I started thinking more and more, and I just ended up with a conclusion. I think it might be a stimulant to further discussion, and maybe for your future paper, that the basic structure doctrine or the substantive core of the Constitution could be both a blessing and a curse in the Polish context, because it could be a blessing if we used it right. Like you said, it depends on the conscience of the judges, basically. And if we actually managed to overturn the bad changes into the Polish system using the intuitions about what the substantive core is. But on the other hand, if our constitutional court that currently functioning constitutional court would interpret the substantive core of the Constitution entirely differently than they are supposed to, then they could basically do anything with the Constitution. So on the one hand, I was very enthusiastic about the concept, but then I became very anxious, and I feel it's just the result of the distrust I have in the Polish judicial system.
Yeah, thank you very much for this remark, because I think this is a remark we can have about the natural law concept in general. Yeah, that when we understand natural law like something good, something protective for the democracy, for the, I don't know, values we share. Yeah, but of course it could be quite opposite. Yeah, that someone says natural law is natural law of, I don't know, only special races, yes, special, I don't know, any, we can imagine anything, yeah, and that's actually why I am a little bit not so enthusiastic for this concept from the very beginning, yeah, because of course it's a weapon, as I mentioned before, and it could be used different time, and that's why actually we invented written law. Yeah, that's why. Yeah, because it should somehow limit the and that's why I asked in the first place, what's the Constitution? Yeah, the Constitution is this limitation of power. Yeah, so I completely understand your remark, but still, I have to say that I am now I am much more open to the concept than I was like 10 years ago. Yeah, so it could you shouldn't just be only frightened by it. Yeah, but you still have to know that it has these possible limits.